Almond flour Oreo style sandwich cookies. I did it. Let's go see how it was done. Oreo cookies have been around for over 100 years. They were released in 1912 by the National Biscuit Company, which we now know as Nabisco. And since their inception over 100 years ago, there have been more than 100 flavors released. And if you're like me, you kind of miss them. I hardly even really remember what they taste like because it's been so long, over 25 years since I've eaten one.
Maybe it's the Oreos.
I don't eat Oreos.
But they've kind of been the grail of something I wanted to make because they're just a great snack cookie with the cream filling and the crunchy cookie. And they're kind of hard to recreate, but I really wanted to try. And I did do a vanilla one a little bit ago. I released a recipe, but I didn't do the video. So I wanted to do that one for you today and add the chocolate version for those of us who eat chocolate. So if you're on a CD diet, the golden one works great for you. And if you added chocolate, if you're on GAPS or Paleo or just a grain-free diet and you eat chocolate, these are going to be for you. The biggest challenge in making these cookies is getting the right cookie. So I have my vanilla snack cookies, which I did do a video for a little bit ago, and they're in my cookbook, Don't Skip Dessert. I had the right texture, but getting them thin enough was going to be the challenge. So when I made those, I just refrigerated the dough and sliced it like a refrigerator cookie because it was hard to roll out. So I knew to make these, I was going to have to be able to roll that dough and also keep it chilled enough that the cookies won't spread out as they're baking. So that was the challenge, but I did it. So let's see how I accomplished making our grain-free Oreo-style sandwich cookies. I have my ingredients here to get started. So I'm using my vanilla snack cookies, and for the golden Oreos sandwich cookies, that's going to be the same recipe. I'm actually just going to cut it in half for this video because I'm doing the two different kinds and I just don't need that many cookies, and to save a little time as well. So I've got my almond flour, so I'll give you the half batch measurements I'm doing, but I will give a link to the full recipe so you can have that in the description. So I've got 1 1/4 cups of almond flour. I got 1 tablespoon of coconut flour, a 4th teaspoon of baking soda, 1/8 teaspoon of salt. My wet ingredients, I've got a 4th cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of cocoa butter, and 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to add my wet ingredients to my little saucepan here. And I'm going to turn this on medium-low heat. We just need to get these melted so we can stir it into the dry ingredients. I know right now when I'm making this video, cocoa butter is expensive and sometimes hard to find. You could just use twice the amount of butter instead. It might not give exactly the same consistency for the cookie, but it should work. All right, we're melted. I'm going to remove this from the heat and let it cool down for a few minutes, and then I'm going to whisk in a little bit of vanilla. Half teaspoon of vanilla here. Whisked in. I just let this cool off for a few minutes, so it's still warm, but not real hot. Just pouring this in, and we're going to mix it. So you can see this is a very easy recipe. Okay, just stir till this combines. And now I'm just going to form this into a ball. When I do the full batch, I divide it into 2. I don't have to do that here. So we're just going to get this ready, and then we're going to put this in the freezer to firm up a little bit. That will make it a lot easier to roll. Just like that, it's going to go into the freezer. When I have the full batch, I just use the same bowl. I have them just the two balls of dough sitting next to each other, but since I need to make the other batch now, I'm just going to put this in like this for about 20 to 30 minutes into the freezer. Our chocolate version of the cookies starts out pretty much the same with a couple of changes. When we're going to reduce our coconut flour by half, so in my batch, that's going to be 1.5 teaspoons. Our 4th teaspoon of baking soda. Our other change, 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. And our 8th teaspoon of salt. Just going to give this a little mix for our base, and then we'll move on to our wet ingredients, which is going to be exactly the same, so we don't need to go over that in detail again. Just adding our honey, cocoa butter, and butter. That's melted together and then cooled, and now I'm just going to add my 4th teaspoon of vanilla. If you were thinking that it didn't look like there was quite enough ingredients in this dry bowl, you were correct. I forgot to put in a whole cup of the almond flour, so now we're at the right place. And all right, pour in the wet. Stir. My chocolate cookie dough is a little bit wetter than the vanilla one, and I'm pretty sure I know why. It's because my guesstimate of the cocoa butter was probably a little off. I think I put a little too much in. So I usually just measure in the wafers and then melt it that way. But to be accurate, you could melt them ahead of time and get the exact measurement and then add it to your other wet ingredients. I got this formed into a little bit better of a ball, and so now I'm just going to put it in the refrigerator and chill it a little bit while I get the vanilla cookies ready. I realized the first time I made these, the golden ones, I did not chill the dough before I started rolling it. So basically, what you need is a temperature that it's workable. So it's very soft, like that chocolate one. You'll need to chill it for a little bit. I chilled this because I was making the other dough. You need it to be workable, like this one is. You're gonna need a board that's big enough to roll out on, and that you can, but also a size that you can put into your freezer. That's gonna be the easiest thing. You're gonna need something to keep your dough on while it chills. What we're gonna do, this is where I really had to do some figuring out. This is the alchemy of this one, is that I had to figure out how to get the dough. I could cut it and keep it in shape without it falling apart, but get the right cookie consistency. So first, what I do is I flatten it out with my hands as much as I can. And now I'm gonna roll it. You gotta keep track of where your dough is on the board. And then roll it out. Try to be as even as you can. All right, let's check. You gotta be careful you don't roll it off the edge. And so what you want is it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick. Get the camera down here a little bit. So yeah, that's about right. The edges sometimes, yeah. You don't want like a super thin spot, so we want to try to keep it as uniform as we can. And now I'm just going to stick this in the freezer. I'm actually going to put this back over it and stick this in the freezer for about 20 minutes, and then we can do our cutouts and bake it. Now we're going to do the same process with the chocolate. I have the other one chilling, so I'm just going to get this rolled out. Okay, same process. I have a slightly smaller cutting board, but I didn't want to wait for the other one to be ready, so I'm just going to try this on this one. All right, so that looks good. I just got a little bit of a thick piece here. Oh, I'm good. So that looks good. About 1/8 of an inch thick. If it's a little thicker, it will still be fine. I just didn't want like that thick of cookies when I'm making a sandwich. I want it to be thin, more like the Oreo. But you don't have to be super precise. Just we want it to be thin. So I'm just going to put this one into the freezer. We cut out our other one. All right, now for the fun part, we're going to cut them out. I am using this little cutter. It's actually a pasta cutter. You can use anything you like. I like this. It's only 1 inch. It's the right shape. It has a little fluted edges. So we're just going to go through and cut this out. I've got them cut out, and then I'm just going to move them over to my lined baking sheet. I have my baking sheet lined. I have got a silicone and a parchment. You just need to have something. I would probably advise having something on here and not just the bare pan. But however you normally bake cookies is fine. So we're just gonna start lining these up. They should not spread out. I'm actually gonna pop them back into the freezer once I get them on here, just to make sure they are nice and chilled for baking. All right, on my pan, I'm just gonna pop these back in the freezer while my oven finishes preheating. One thing with these is that I don't worry about re-rolling. You could probably actually get a lot more cookies if you did that process. Because we have to go through so much with chilling it and rolling it and making sure it's cold. What I do with this leftover dough is I just form cookies, just cookies that I'm not going to make into sandwiches, and bake them that way. So we'll just save that for later. Into the oven at 325. I'm going to bake these for about 6 or 7 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for 6 minutes and check them because they're very thin and we don't want them to burn. Okay, 6 minutes. These cookies can be tricky. Because they can be underdone and then get done kind of fast. But we can tell that these are not, they will be soft and then get crunchier, but these are like, they should hold their shape, and these are not holding their shape at all. So we need a little bit longer. Okay, so see, they are pretty brown. They're still fairly soft, so you just let them sit in the pan until they cool down enough to totally hold their shape. All right, my cookies firmed up. I can move them to the rack. You can see I'm just using my hands. They cooled off that much. So I think the baking time is really going to depend on how cold they were when you put them in the oven. And we still want them cold so that they will hold their shape. You see, they didn't spread out. That's what we want. These will continue to get totally crispy once they're completely cooled. All right. Chocolate one is frozen. Very nice. All right, let's cut them out. Cut out. I'm going to move them to the pan. I'm going to try this pan without the silicone liner and see if it helps firm them up a little bit more while they're baking. All right, chocolate one's ready to go into the oven. All right, my chocolate cookies out of the oven. They are soft like the other ones, but they are not raw. So I'm just going to let them cool. You have to be prepared that these are very soft when they come out of the oven, or else you'll overcook them. They're very soft. You cannot move them yet. You have to let them cool in the pan. That is very important. Let them cool almost all the way until you can actually pick them up. All right, just getting these off the pan. These turned out great. I really like the texture of these. These are perfect. I'm just going to let them crisp up a little bit more, cooling them before I fill them, but I love them. They are so nice. Perfect shape. Let's move on to our filling. That was the hardest for me to figure out, like what to use to get that kind of a filling. Oreos currently the filling is made from canola oil and palm oil, and then a bunch of other stuff. the only thing I'm going to share in that is that I'm using palm shortening. It is 100% palm oil. If you're on a specific carbohydrate diet, this is okay as far as what I've been able to figure out, as long as it is only palm oil. And since I've got 2 batches, I can do my full batch of filling. But palm oil is what I figured was going to give me the closest to the Oreo filling. Oreos started out with lard. And then they moved to the partially hydrogenated vegetable oil eventually, which because of health concerns, I don't think that's actually healthier, but you know, what it did do was make them vegetarian, so that was good for vegetarians. They could enjoy Oreos since they were not using lard any longer. So I have a half a cup of palm shortening here. You could experiment with other things if you'd like, but this is how I came up with it. I got 3 tablespoons of honey, and this is a thicker honey. I ran out of my other one, so I have this thicker one here. 2 tablespoons of coconut flour. This is optional, but You don't have to use coconut flour here, but it adds a little more texture to the filling, which I like, so that's why I'm using it. It helps thicken it up, gives it like that stiffer texture like an Oreo. And then I just got a little pinch of salt that helps bring out some flavor, and a half teaspoon of vanilla, which is already spilling in here. And that's it for the filling. I'm just going to blend our filling until it is very well mixed. All right, that looks good. My vanilla ones are cooled, crisp, and we're ready to put the filling on these. All I'm gonna do is take a little of my filling, put it on here, sandwich it. You can use your judgment on how much to use. I don't want to run out, so I don't want to use too much. But that's about right. That looks kind of like an Oreo. We're gonna chill these again before you eat them, because you don't want the filling to squish out. It's best to store these in the refrigerator or the freezer. I personally like them in the freezer the best. I think that the cookies and the filling have the best texture when they're really cold. So that's easy. All right, my chocolate ones are cooled. Time to fill these. I'm very excited about these. You could try different things with the filling. You could make a chocolate filling by just stirring some cocoa powder in there. I don't think you would have to do anything else with it besides that. You could try different extracts. I think peppermint would be great, but I really just wanted to do the classic vanilla cream. Let's try them. Start with the golden. So I've had these ones before, but I want to tell you how it tasted. Could you hear the crunch? These are so good. I love these. So tasty. Chocolate. The classic Oreo chocolate sandwich cookie. Wow. If you can eat chocolate, these are so good. I didn't think they would be that chocolatey because I didn't put that much in, but they have a nice deep chocolate flavor. So good. Both of them are good. Whichever way you want to go, or both, these are great. I'm so happy I made these. These cookies were surprisingly easy to make. The recipe itself is very easy. The harder part is, you have to cool them and chill them and cut them out and do that part stuff. So there's a little bit of time, but it's easy. It's just a little more time consuming. So let me know, are you gonna make these? And please like this video if you enjoyed this, and if you are excited to make your own almond flour, gluten-free, grain-free, Oreo style cookies.